Welcome back to another edition of In the Booth. Of course, I'm Flobo Boyce, and I'm hanging with those who are just fans and support the sport. Can I call this a celebrity guest? Can I call you that, sir? Can
No, I don't need that. I don't need the smoke or the pressure or the drama. So no,
You
you
get
can't. No, brother, you can. I hope this doesn't start our conversation off badly, but no, you cannot.
all right. Michael Chavez, Obama Foundation. How's it going, sir? I want to talk to you about baseball life and everyone between, but tell me how you're living, man.
I'm living great, man. I'm in Chicago. We had like literally one day of warm weather earlier, and so everybody was outside. We was outside. Certain folks were wearing shorts. We don't want to get into all that. I was not. Because
Mm-hmm.
it is still we're in Chicago, and I don't know what my mama would say looking down on me, seeing me wearing shorts in February in Chicago. But it's a beautiful day. I'm feeling good.
I mean, I can't lie to you. So I'm from Brooklyn, but I don't underestimate a Midwestern person be like, it's shorts weather and it's like
Right.
45 degrees outside.
Exactly. I mean, that's literally what I'm talking about. That's
Sheesh.
exactly right.
have you been catching up with the World Baseball Classic this year at all?
Yeah. So, couple of one, I got a bunch of stuff on DVR. I think that I'm going to watch the U.S. play Italy tonight, and from what I can remember, at least last time, the Italian team was basically like the French soccer team in
Okay.
that it had a bunch of people who were like Senegalese but playing for France. I feel like the Italian team had a bunch of Italian Americans, so I'm just looking forward to that whole dynamic.
Yeah, the eligibility rules for the World Baseball Classic. That aside, I mean, I love the idea of the concept, but the eligibility rules are a lot more fluid than even soccer. Like
I love
Mark
it.
Vientos is playing for Nicaragua. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why not, man? Uh,
Exactly.
it,
By the way, my favorite thing about the uh, World Baseball Classic is Dusty Baker's entire fit. That's
oh yeah.
that's how I'm going to be. Once I get to my full uncle stage, that is literally how I'm rolling.
Wait, so are you half Uncle Stage, quarter? Where's the
I don't,
loading
I
meter right
don't,
now?
I feel like I don't, I'm almost there. I don't have any grandchildren yet, but my kids are grown. And I
Okay.
feel like that's about to be at uncle stage. I'm 56. I'm actually be 57, the 24th of March. So I feel like I'm just about there.
Okay, yeah, I got you. I thought I was hitting to an Unc stage, and the kid that I didn't even know called me Big Bro. I was like, oh, thank goodness.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Yeah,
still, I'm still in the Big Bro decade,
days
man.
are over for me, Flo. I
Yeah.
don't get big bro anymore.
So let's talk about our connection with baseball because I actually stumbled across your Anscape article, which turns 10 years old this
Wow.
year, about being a Black Cubs fan.
Yeah.
And I grew up a Mets fan, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, and a small White Sox fan. But the idea of going to a ballpark, seeing a sport you love, and realizing you're one of the few people there must have been pretty shocking. What was the inspiration between writing that article then and then?
The inspiration is actually how I started the article. So my wife and I, we met in college, and she did a lot of beautiful things for me in college, including being my girlfriend, and then later actually agreeing to marry me. But we'll go beyond
Why'd
that.
you say? Why'd you say it like that?
I mean, I don't want to skip over this first beautiful thing before I get to this gift she gave me. So this gift she gave me when I think we were about like 20. She gave me a Mitchell and Ness Jackie Robinson jersey,
Wow.
and it was because she knew how I felt about Jackie Robinson, and she knew how I felt about baseball, and so she has been with me on this baseball journey, and we went to a Cubs playoff game, and I was completely on a high. Right. We won the game. I still can't even believe this is happening. This is even before we had gotten to the World Series. And she just remarked, she said, I think we were the only Black people there. And it just sort of hit me that she would that would hit her in that way, and frankly, not hit me. So I have to say, I've been going to Wrigley Field since I was a kid. and I actually sold T-shirts outside of Wrigley Field, and so I grew up and lived on the north side of Chicago, and so the segregated nature of Chicago as I was growing up,
Right.
frankly, was kind of like a fish not knowing it's in water.
Right.
I knew it, but I didn't really clock it. And so, and then all these memories and all of these sort of different ways that I thought about it came flooding. And I just sat down one night afterwards when we got back and wrote the article.
Yeah. I love the idea of the whole north versus south side to Chicago thing because I know there's some people that kind of buck that trend, but it's a hard delineation. Was it as again from someone on the outside looking in? It looked like two different Chicagos. Was it as that pronounced being on the
Yes,
ground?
it is. It is two different Chicago's, and you know, just one of the things I'm doing now at the foundation is opening the Obama Presidential Center on the South Side, and part of the reason why I'm so emotionally attached to it is this investment in a community that has not seen that kind of investment, you know, in generations. Look, so I was born on the south side of Chicago, but my family broke apart pretty quickly, even frankly before I was born. And my mother remarried. She remarried into a Latvian immigrant family on the north side of Chicago, and so I actually spent my whole childhood going back and forth between those two communities. And you know, there's some things about it that obviously are the same, you know, just, and I don't, you know, I don't want to be trite about this. Everybody loves their children. I know that because I felt like they loved me, you know. I've met
Okay.
my people in both sides. I knew they loved me. I had good friends in all sides. I had hardworking people, hardworking families, working families in the neighborhood of Uptown that I grew up in Chatham. But the level of investment and infrastructure, you know, the quality of the parks, the way you could activate the lakefront, which runs across the city of Chicago on all sides. Um, you know, as I got older, public safety and where you could go hoop and where you could go play baseball and where you could go, you know, do that all started to change. And it just became this sense of loss, you know, on the
Mhm.
south side of Chicago, these things that we had, we were starting to lose. And then, you know, on the north side of Chicago where I grew up, it didn't seem like it was that same level of kind of dissipation and degradation. It just sort of stayed. And in many ways, got nicer. And so, yeah, that's kind of how Chicago was then, and it, unfortunately, in many ways, kind of way Chicago still is.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to visit Chicago twice. Second time, I did one of those architecture cruises. Do that next time you're in Chicago, y'all.
Do that next time you're in Chicago. My
Yeah,
wife
please.
will tell you that that's the best tourist thing to do in Chicago is the architecture cruise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fact.
When I was a kid, I'm still a lifelong Mets fan, even though I think David Wright's one of my favorite Mets. I was a big Benny Agbayani fan, so I'm probably dating myself.
You
But
are.
when the leagues were split, my American League team were the White Sox, which is interesting because kids nowadays don't remember a time when the leagues were split. But
Right.
again, also dating myself. But the thing is, to many of us, the White Sox and even Chicago as a whole was like the epitome of cool. Like everyone
Yes.
wanted a White Sox cap, the black and white stripes, the fact they came around and smacked around the Yankees. Even the Cubs, they played outside during the day most days, and there was ivy on the walls, and it was kind of part of a culture thing there. I got to ask you, when you were growing up, what were some things about baseball culture you loved, players you loved, the environment you loved?
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. One of the moments I remember the most that I was so excited was, you know, so I was selling t-shirts, let's say it was 85, 86, 87. And if the timing works out right, I actually remember kind of trying to find a way to get a ticket into the park. So one of the things that would happen when it was back then is right around the fourth or fifth or sixth inning, you kind of didn't need a ticket to get into the ballpark. They would just sort of let you in. It wasn't the same way where, you know, unless it was a Saturday game and the Cardinals were in town or something like that, you could kind of get in. but there was a big game, and it was because the Mets were there. So I had to have a ticket to go in, and I went in to see Darryl Strawberry.
Oh yeah.
And he was just so cool. So you think about Darryl Strawberry, you think about there's this guy who played for the Cubs named Jose Cardinal. He had a big afro, and so he had, the afro was kind of coming out of the helmet. You got Sean Dunston, or as some people who don't know will call him Shawan Dunston, who's our shortstop, who'd have the Shawanometer. And the thing about Wrigley Field, because it played during the day, frankly, people were hanging out. Like there was a famous rant by the manager, Lee Elia, who used to talk about the fact that everybody that was there didn't have a job. I don't know if that's the case because they had to pay for their tickets.
Right.
But I will tell you, it was created a certain vibe of like, we're here to be in the sun, hang out, enjoy ourselves, drink beer. I wasn't drinking beer. Eat hot dogs. Actually literally was not drinking beer, and just enjoy being outside and watching this sport. And I think is this particular unique thing about Wrigley Field and the Cubs that I just always loved. I thought it was dope.
Yeah. Well, if you weren't drinking beer, what were you drinking? What was your beverage of choice back then?
My beverage of choice was Coke, not Pepsi.
Okay. All right. Man has standards. All right.
Don't bring me Pepsi. I drank it at the time if they had it. I wasn't picky, but it was my second choice.
I'm not a snob, but I have preferences.
Cracker Jacks. I was big on Cracker Jacks. You get the little tattoo, you get the little thing. I like put the tattoo on. So that is definitely what I was there. And I was up in the rafters, man. I was up in the upper deck, and one of the great things that could happen if somebody hit a foul ball and went up to the upper deck and went up to the roof, and the way the roof was sloped at Wrigley Field, if it wasn't hit hard enough, it would roll back down, and the organ would play a little song as the ball rolled back down, and that was your best chance to catch a foul ball. So anyway, that's what I was.
Yeah, I first time and the only time with the Wrigley, I was up there and I go, okay, these were sightlines back then. Respect. Yes, watching things through like a fence, kind of a
virtual fence. Yes, they were. Plus, standing room only was a thing on the big games. Plus, obstructed view seating, which I definitely sat in a seat that was behind a pole.
I hope it was cheaper. Was it cheaper?
It was definitely cheaper, which is why I had that seat.
I had to ask, yeah. So a lot of times on this show and even the main Black Baseball Mixtape podcast, we talk about what happened with the shift. Because I remember when I was a kid, it was kind of a fun thing. You bring a Coke can, you got a second seat to go to Shea Stadium and watch the game. There were some kid that looked like me in the stands. What happened, in your opinion, where things just kind of shifted where maybe Black sports going fans just went up to check out other sports over baseball?
Yeah, I haven't thought about this. This is one of the reasons why I was so, frankly, I just wanted to have this conversation with you because I think it's really interesting. I'd say a couple things. One of the things I think Chicagoans would say is that, Wrigley Field got pretty corporate. It became this environment in which, I remember when back when this was an insult, that it was like, oh, the yuppies are taken over, right? And I think what that meant to me is that the people who were at the game basically were brought and attracted to the game by the team because of how ticket prices were, and that's what you could afford. And then certain people were priced out. I think the other thing I'd say that happened is the NBA took off. And frankly, Chicago was responsible for a part of that. Michael Jordan, following off of what Magic and Larry Bird did, it just became this phenomenon. And one of the things that the World Baseball Classic has showed us is that you don't have to be like super dry and boring to play baseball and to enjoy baseball. Sort of baseball in another way became a little bit like golf, where like you kind of couldn't cheer, or you had to on a certain way on the field, you had to be a proper way, and that takes away some of the swag, that takes away some of the style, because that was the thing I always loved about baseball, and particularly the Black players that I fell in love with, is they had style, you know. Somebody that I never got a chance to play, but I did get a chance to meet when I escorted him on Air Force One with President Obama is Willie Mays.
Mhm.
And I remember that, I don't know if this is true or not, but I remember that Willie Mays used to always wear his hat in a way so that if he was going around second or third, his hat would fall off. I actually tried to do that when I was a little kid. I put my hat back so that if I was running around second and third, I was rolling, baby, because my hat. But it's that kind of sense of not only am I going to play, not only am I going to beat you, but I'm gonna put some style on it too that I think is really attracted me. And I think as that also went away from the game, I think other sports kind of took that swag factor and brought some of our fans with them.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. The prevailing theory I had, there's two parts to that, was in the 90s, we had both the rise of like the Space Jams and one mixtape tours and all that for basketball, and then the rise of Madden, the game series for football, which just made it cool. I was a 90s kid, and that was kind of what it was. I was watching baseball by myself by that point because everyone wanted to do that. But also on top of that, the whole like you were mentioning, the environment at a baseball game. The legend goes, if you listen to Black Diamonds, I'm sure you have, about how many Negro League teams went and barnstormed in Caribbean places and in Asia, and a lot of that flair went with them. And we have this version of baseball. It's very like, hey man, head down, don't show anybody up, just have quiet grace. It's fun in a vacuum. But again, also to your point, I'm watching World Baseball Classic, and we don't have any chants, we don't have any drums, we don't got any remixes. Where's our Bad Buddy, y'all? Come on, like it's kind of a big disconnect. I think a lot of it has to be part of that factor as well.
But I think that's to me, it is one of the things that is the best thing about this country. When I was working at the White House, remember President Obama said about the Olympics that he would see the Olympic team come through, and the literally the diversity of our country was our strength, literally, because you would have people who like physically, like all of these people mentally are incredibly disciplined. Emotionally, they are prepared to suffer and operate at the highest level of their sport. That's how you make the Olympic team, right?
Right.
Physically, you got somebody who is God made to play basketball. You got somebody who God made to throw a discus, farther than anybody. Somebody who like, oh, this person is doing the hurdles. This person's a gymnast. And what made really that he watched was like this country, because it was a country that has attracted people from all over the world and found a place for them to be able to express themselves and do their thing here, that we have these champions. Yeah. And I think, the idea that we would somehow dissuade people from bringing the best of their history, of their culture, of their heart into like the national pastime, it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm excited to see some of that infiltrated. Now, the one thing, you being a 90s kid, I was an 80s thing, 70s and 80s. I'm kind of happy that the fighting is gone,
kind of happy.
I would run you over at home plate, and then if you said something to me, I'd swing on you. I'm kind of glad that's gone. But if we could bring the swag back without the scrapping, I'm for it.
Man, shout out to Albert Bell. It's funny you mentioned about the diversity thing, because one of my favorite pastimes besides baseball is professional wrestling, and I know it's a weird connection, but just for background, I'm a first generation American. My parents came to this country in the 70s. They had me in the 80s. I'm the youngest, and my dad always told me the two times where no one cared about what he looked like or his accent or whatever was at Madison Square Garden, watching Chief Jay Strongbow and buying one of those Shea Stadium red seat that was way up in the sky to watch the Mets, and that really was a thing. But at the same time, as we get these new facilities, these new infrastructure, these new hospitality plays, it does seem like things are kind of cordoned off. Oh, are you middle class? You sit down there. Oh, you want a padded seat? You pay this premium. I'm not sure if that's part of it too, but it does feel like a little bit of a less of a togetherness at the ballpark today.
give me a second to be a little nerdy.
Okay.
So, and not baseball nerdy, just nerdy. Uh, there's this phrase called, I think it's called collective effervescence, and it was coined by, I believe, a French psychologist. And what it describes is this feeling, and I hope your listeners can like take a moment and think about this when you're at a concert or when you're at a game. It could be a kids game, it could be a professional game, but think about that. Or you could be at the theater, and you experience this moment where everybody in the stadium, in the school, is feeling the same thing at the same time, like a big laugh or a jump scare or a thrill at an amazing play, right?
Mhm.
Somebody hits a ball to the outfield. This is my favorite play in baseball. My favorite play in baseball is somebody hits a ball out to the outfield grabs it, and there's a play at the plate. The level of energy and excitement around that, it's felt by everybody. It's felt by the players. It's felt by the managers. It's felt by everything in the stand. That feeling is one of the things I think that makes us uniquely human.
Mhm.
And it is a moment in which every bit of division falls away. We're all feeling the same thing at the same time. And the psychologist believes that that's one of the reasons why it feels so good.
Oh,
And I think that if we start taking that away, I think we are taking away one of the last things that we have in our society where we can experience exactly what your father said that he experienced. And I just think we have to like realize how important and precious that is. And frankly, how rare it is these days. And I think it's one of the reasons why sports is just, it's really, really important.
yeah. Just therapy, if you will. You know?
Exactly. This sense of like common connection and common ground. I think we need it.
There's a lot of things to love about the game today, a lot of things to feel like are challenges out there. The price of tickets are always in flux. Some of the food options are better, but at what expense?
Yeah.
I ask everyone on the show, and I want the answer from you as well, taking everything into account, the way some of the kids now can play and show a bit of personality, some of the teams are talking about expanding or moving to in the case of the athletics. Is baseball cool in your estimation today? Why or why not?
Yeah. So baseball is cool for one reason. There is something about, I think, somebody, and of all the different ways we've decided to play games, one of the reasons why this sport, I think, became special and lasted is that there is something about, I'm better than you at throwing this thing, and I'm going to find a way to throw it past you. And somebody's saying, no, you are not. You're not throwing this thing past me. If you follow within the rules and it comes across these inches at this height, I'm knocking it out of the ballpark, or I'm hitting it in order to make sure that my team beats your team. That is just always going to be cool. It's just always going to have some drama. If you have somebody who is better at it than anybody else, that person is going to be heroic. Either way, better pitcher, better hitter. By the way, if you hit the ball really good and somebody can make sure no matter how good you hit it that they're going to get you out, that's cool. So and there is, or if there is somebody who's like, I don't actually need to hit the ball, go all around these bases and score, that's cool. And I just think that that is always going to be there, and people are always going to be evolving on it or riffing on it. It just is like, it's like music.
Right.
There are
It's
only so many notes. They haven't created a bigger keyboard. They haven't created more notes. There's only so many notes. And since the beginning of time, we've been able to endlessly create different ways to use those notes because there's something special and unique about that. And I just think that's what this is. And so yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's always going to be cool.
I can't argue with that, man. It is like a rhapsody in its own way, right?
Yes.
It's like it's a structure, but enough flair to do your own thing
Structure
and
and
come on
that,
back.
and now you work with that and see what you're gonna do with it.
I just want to say thank you so much for your time, just being here in the booth with me. Just I'm learning so much about perspectives on it, yours included. If people want to know more about you and what you're working on, now's the time, man. Promote, promote, promote.
Oh, baby. All right. Well, look, I have had the privilege, this incredible privilege of being on this journey with Barack and Michelle Obama since kind of around the time we were talking about, since I was in college, and now they're creating the Obama Presidential Center in Chicago. It's going to be this gift to the city, the country, and the world. Just around this idea that like ordinary people just can do extraordinary things. So it's opening. He just announced it's opening in June 19th. And yeah, go to obama.org, sign up to be the first to know. We're going to have a lot of sports in there. I have opined on the sports exhibit at the museum, and it is dope. That is all I will tell you. It is very, very cool, and it's got some baseball in it. So sign up to be the first to know.
So I have to go all the way to Chicago because you just
Yes.
teased it without telling me what's inside.
Yes.
Come on.
You're gonna get some good food, and you're gonna find a nice place to eat, and we're gonna take good care of you. So yes, you have to come all the way to Chicago.
All right, before we get out of here, two quick questions. 2026 Cubs season, give me a win-loss record. And do you sing the song when they win a game?
I sing the song when they win the game, stupid. I'm like singing it. Which is hilarious because that's kind of like a new phenomenon. This is not something I did growing up, but there are unquestionably videos of my wife and I sitting there singing "Go Cubs Go," and I do not want to know what my kids look like next to us as we were doing it, because I'm certain they were embarrassed.
Right.
And I'm actually feeling really good about this season. I'm gonna put us at 88 wins.
Oh, playoff bound.
Yeah, so we're playoff bound, and so I'm feeling pretty good about it. Cannot believe I just said that out loud. So I definitely jinxed this, but
yep.
Everybody, world, if it happens, you all know where to blame. Come see me at the Obama Presidential Center. At least you'll buy a ticket if you want to watch the ruin the Cubs season.
Tag all your L flags at. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Flobo, this is great, man. Thank you.